Hi, welcome to P Schorn Studio. In this video, I'm going to go over color pencil basics. I'm going to go over a lot of tips, some inside tricks, things like that to help you to get you started in your journey with the color pencil, to be able to create color in an image that will look realistic, something that is not a drawing but more fine art. So, really, where it starts is with the materials you use. So I'm going to start off with the pencils, and I happen to use, these are the Prismacolor soft core pencils. The majority of color pencils out there pencils out on the market are going to be a wax-based pencil, meaning that the barrel of the pencil, where the color is when you look at it, is that it is softer, meaning that there's more wax in the pencil barrel here. More pigment, richer color, less hardener, so it keeps it softer, so you have more wax and more pigment, okay? Where on school grade pencils, it will be more hardener, a lot less wax and less pigment, so they're not broken very easily. And these you'll see in the schools for the kids today. It'll snap the pencils. So there is a lot of good brands of pencils out there. Whether you're using an oil-based pencil, it'll go down the same way. Some of the blending methods may not work exactly the same or get exact same results, but the pencils are very good. Lots of brands out there. If you're going to buy yourself a set of pencils, I would start with, my first tip would be, get a set of 12, try them out, see how you like it. If it doesn't work out, or you don't like that brand or whatever, then try something else. But just get a few pencils just to try them out. So, pencils are a big deal. I like my Prismas. I like the range of colors. I like how they go down. I like how they mix, blend, so on. The other thing is paper, what you actually draw on. Paper is absolutely huge. Okay. One thing about getting a nice realistic color is you don't see the white of the paper. All paper has a tooth. You may not always feel it, but it's there. So if I take this pencil this black pencil, and I go over the side, let me zoom in on that. Those little white specks that you see in here, those are the crevices of the paper. What happens with that is that if we don't cover all of that, those crevices, which are those little nooks and crannies of the paper, is that color, that white, is going to show through, and it's going to make your color look washed out. It's going to look diluted. It's going to just knock it back a bit. Okay, let me refocus this. And so we're going to go over and how to get the paper nice and smooth. So the paper that I typically will use is a smooth Bristol. Not a vellum Bristol, not a rough Bristol, natural, whatever, different brands out there. I want a smooth paper. I don't want to fight the paper. I want it to go down nice, smooth, clean, so it shows up, so I don't have to work as hard to get my color into these nooks and crannies of the paper. Okay. So how do we do that to create color to go down? And now I'm going to go through my general guidelines for drawing with the color pencil. keep in mind, color pencil is a generally a semi-transparent medium, meaning that you can see through this, even though we can put it down really heavy and it will be opaque, but we work it in a semi-transparent fashion, so we mix our colors together. So my number one biggie, draw small. Everything you do inherently, everything we do is a line. Everything is a line. But we don't want to see our lines. Okay? So how do we get rid of our lines? How do we not see the lines? Well, draw small. I'm not doing back and forth. When I draw small, I'm drawing small. My lines typically are no bigger than 1/8 of an inch. The smaller it is, the harder it is for the eye to pick it up. Does it take a while? Yes. And what I do is I draw small, and as I'm drawing, it's basically a doodle. I am drawing and I'm kind of overlapping myself. So I'm kind of like going all back over and covering my tracks, but really small. Okay? Now, the second one, I draw lightly, meaning that because I create my colors, and let me zoom back out here a little bit more. When I draw lightly, because everything is mixed on the paper, I'm drawing small, but when I draw lightly, I'm not doing this. I'm going to do, and it's barely, you can barely pick it up there on the camera here. Okay? I draw lightly. Why do I draw lightly? Is because one, when you draw, everything, you're constantly adjusting for the color. Okay? If I work it lightly, I can always make it darker. Oh, okay, I need a little bit more color. I can always go back over and drop in a little bit more color. Okay? Working lightly keeps my drawing, I want to say, it keeps me drawing in a safe fashion, more control. Color pencil is a very controlled oriented type of medium. You control everything. So by doing it lightly, your chances of mistakes are that much less. Drawing lightly is very, very hard for people to do because everybody gets that death grip on that pencil and they want to do this instead of this. Okay? They think, okay, I got that color on there. This is what I want to get. If you were to do everything really heavy right away, you lose a lot of your ability to change your color because you're going to get too dark. You cannot go in there and say, okay, I'm going to throw a white pencil on there and have white all of a sudden. It doesn't work that way. So by doing it lightly, you have the control to make it darker as you see fit to create the color. But you're doing it small. Lastly, a sharp pencil. I like my electric sharpener. I have an X-Acto School Pro. I also have an old Panasonic that I use. The other thing about sharpening, another tip about sharp pencils, I have one of these. These metal ones, these are very popular, very good. There's also the little handheld ones with the just manual. Got the little container to pick up the scrap and everything. This happens to be from Prismacolor. The tip about sharpening your pencils with one of these sharpeners is that when you sharpen it, you put it in, don't crank the pencil so much. What happens is that your hand, when it turns it, will go take it and do one of these actions, pivoting off the tip just enough, because this being a softer waxy pencil, snaps off in your sharpener. What I strongly suggest you do, when you get your pencil in there, hold that, turn the sharpener, do a crank it a few times, then turn the pencil a half turn or whatever, turn, do it again, turn till you get the tip that you want on your pencil. You are less likely to break your pencil that way than turning the pencil. So that goes for all sorts of these manual little handheld sharpeners. So let me sharpen this up. So now that we got our pencil sharp, why have the sharp pencil? It goes back to these nooks and crannies, okay? The sharper pencil will have a tendency, drop that pencil into more of those nooks and crannies. If my pencil is dull and I got a wide tip on it, what's going to happen is that it's only going to hit the peaks of the paper, and it's not going to get that color down into those the crevices, the valleys of the paper. So we will end up seeing white if our tip is dull. Okay, so by drawing small, lightly with a sharp pencil, now we have a good method, a good way of doing a very controlled drawing. So I'm going to do a little bar across here. I'm going to use my violet blue. I'm going to do it small. And let me zoom in on this, because we're going to use that for some testing. And let's bring this out this way. Okay. Now, when I also hold my pencil, typically it's the basic 45 degree. Keep your hand comfortable. When you're drawing, turn the paper if you need to, because what happens is that when you draw and you're putting it on here and you get that light color, you have a tendency to create a pattern. We're not going to be painting a room. We're not going to start top and make rows and things like that, because what's going to happen, you're going to see overlap. Okay, so and I'm going to fill this box in as light, about like a 10 or 15% of the color, and I'm just going to take that and I'm just going to fill in this as lightly as I can go. And basically it's a small, controlled doodle. Now, one of the things with the pencil, as you're drawing, that tip wears down. Turn it in your hand every now and then. That'll put that sharp tip back in there. You're not going to cover the paper instantly on the first pass. It will take several passes, because as we go up, we're going to be doing the blending. Will be putting more pressure. But just what I want to do is I'm going to kind of put this color down. And this is where you want to minimize mistakes. So by working lightly, small, you minimize your mistakes, because you're constantly adjusting what you do as you go along. Now, when I put my color down, depending on what you're drawing, of course, everything comes with it depends, consistency is huge with the color when you're putting this down. So, because the next color that goes on top needs that color all the way across. So if I'm blending and I miss an area here, well, what I blend here is going to skip, and I'm going to get a different color because that's only down to the white of the paper or whatever. So consistency is key as well. So in this case, I am just going to, and I'm just using a light pressure on the hand, on my hand with this. And I'll turn the pencil here and there. Now, is everything done this way? No. It depends on what you're drawing. But whether you're drawing a dog, a refrigerator, your lamp, or whatever, or outside drawing small, lightly is going to help you tremendously because it will help you adjust your picture as you go along. I'm just kind of meandering along here, just putting in my color here as best I can. I don't see any huge dark areas. Another tip with this is that because color pencil does take time in using this method, that when you get anxious about a drawing and you start speeding up, you start seeing lines because you're going faster. You're like, oh, okay. You get antsy. So you want to slow down. If you start seeing your lines, put the picture away for a while and then come back to it when you can focus in on it more. But this is where a lot of time comes in because it does take time to do. Okay, I have, and this is a violet blue that I put on here going across. It's pretty consistent. I have it maybe a hair darker over here. That's no big deal. Where I said, okay, I can always go darker. It's always, when you're not sure, play it safe, go light. If I want to make this darker in an area, okay, yeah, I think I need a little bit more. I'm going to go back in here with my violet blue again, and I'm going to go on this side, and I'm just going to darken up an end. But I'm going to do is kind of let it drop off in this area, and I want to get like a little soft edge where it feathers off. So now I'm going back over. Same sharp tip. I don't have to sharpen as much if I keep turning the pencil. I'm going to bring this out. Now, I'm not putting down any heavy pressure on the pencil. I'm keeping my hand comfortable. I will turn my paper occasionally a little bit if I find that I'm getting into a pattern forming. I don't want to have that painted wall look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let up on my pressure of my pencil where I want to drop off that color. Now, I got more of a blended, a little bit darker here and going out to here. Now I can even do it a little bit more. I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring it up a little bit more. Now, do you have to do it always this way? No, as you get more comfortable with it, you might be able to, and it depends on what you're drawing, of course, but as you get better and more comfortable with what the color pencil will do, now you can do more, you can go a little bit heavier, faster with the pencil for layering your colors, okay? Also, as I'm going up, you notice how the paper is very minimal already. That's only the third layer. but because of the sharp pencil, that little tip is catching in on those nooks and crannies of this. And what's nice is that I'm mixing my color as I go up. So now I'm going to take, let's see, I'm going to grab we're going to use a red. And let's grab, this is a Scarlet Lake Red. Sharpen this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a little bit of red on this side. I'm going to bring it out just a little bit. And what's nice, the red is going to mix with the blue a little bit. I'm not doing it real heavy. Nice light touch like what I did earlier. But with the red, if I do red separately, I get red. But if I do it on top of my violet blue here, I get a bit of a purplish color because they're mixing together. I'm just going to bring this out a bit. I'm going to let up on my pressure because I just want to let this go off softly. Okay. Now I'm going to go back over and I'm going to darken up this edge just a little bit more. Just a side note, blue is an excellent color for darkening reds, greens, browns. So now, as I bring up and I'm constantly turning my pencil. So I have that sharp edge. I haven't sharpened it yet again. I mean, I will soon, but I don't have to as much by constantly turning my pencil in my hand. So now, I'm getting a much smoother gradation because drawing small, watching my pressure, how I do it, and I have good paper. Okay, so I have a little bit of blue, the red. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop some yellow in the middle. I'm going to sharpen this up. Now, with this blue and the yellow, I'm going to get green. So now with this tip, I'm going to drop. And my value of green, the color of green I get, is based upon how much blue I have underneath. And a question is going to come up, always, always, always comes up when you're drawing. Do I go light to dark or dark to light? And my answer is yes. It depends. It depends on what you are drawing. The sequence of colors does matter to an extent in what goes down first or what you end up with. Okay. And I'm going to bring my yellow into my blue over here. And this yellow, which is getting like a greenish feel to it, because yellow looks bright and everything like that, but with just on the white, but with the blue underneath, gives it that, you get that green color. Same as if I red and blue, it's going to give me a purple. If I go yellow and red, I get an orange. So I'm going to mix this. Now also, I'm not putting down a lot of pressure over here. But you notice that I'm going to get a darker color, a little bit richer green, because there's more blue over here. And I'm just going to keep turning that pencil. I'll have to sharpen it soon because I'm losing my tip completely. I kind of have a tendency to turn and I flick a little bit. Okay. And I'll bring this yellow over into my red, but I'm not going to cover it all the way like I did with the blue. So I'm getting a dirty orange because I have the blue underneath. Okay. Sharpen this up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to throw a little bit more yellow in there. So as I'm going to go up in layers and I start pushing down and going up in layers, the number of layers is a very relative term, depending on the color you're trying to do, based upon how much pressure you're putting on the pencil. It sounds complicated. It really isn't. You find out that your ability to see what you're doing and adjust along the way, you are much better at it than you will think you are, but with some practice. So now I'm going to go and use some more yellow in the middle here, but I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on the pencil. Instead of holding my pencil more at a 45, what I do is I bring it more up when I want to put more pressure on it. Because what's going to happen now is that the pressure, instead of being on the tip and snipping it off this way, if I go more vertical with the pencil, the pressure goes up the pencil instead of on the tip. Less likely to break it. Okay. Now, another little tip here. When you're doing more pressure, the pencils at times like to leave little crumbs. You'll see little crumbs off to the side or whatever. Number one, never ever use your hand to wipe your paper. Okay? Use a little brush. I keep a couple of brushes handy. This happens to be an old paintbrush from Home Depot or whatever. And I just use that to keep my paper clean. Okay? So, let me add this yellow in here. Pencil's a little more vertical. And I'm going to use that. And I'm going to push down on here. And what's going to happen is that my yellow is going to be more intense. It's actually a bit of a greenish color because of the blue that I had underneath it. And I'm just going to kind of feather that off. Now you can see where that got a little bit more intense. And I'm going to just feather that out a bit on each side. I'm not going to bring it all the way across. So I kind of got a little bit of a red, a little bit of fade, yellow, fade, and blue. Okay. A lot of your mixing and blending is just using the pencils themselves. But I really like to use some other ways of blending. I like my white to do some blending with my colors here. White is the most used color pencil. And you can use it for a lot of things. blending being mostly for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of strip here. If I take my white, and now when I blend with white, now I have to go vertical because I'm going to use more pressure on it. So I'm going to do a little bit of white on my blue yellow, and I'll do a little strip across. And I'm pushing down on it. To give me, and you can see what I'm getting with that white. It's a nice, a little bit pastel-ish looking color. Now, do I use white to blend everything? Absolutely not. But I use white a lot. Just not for everything. So you can see that white, what that did to the blue and everything going across. I also like my blending pen. This is a marker. This happens to be a Prismacolor. It'll say colorless blender pen here. What it is, it's a marker with no color. It's just the alcohol in it. So you got a thin tip. You can tell by here by the thin bar, and it's got a wide tip. On the pens, if I leave the cap off for an hour or whatever overnight, my pen will dry out. It's alcohol. It will evaporate. So when you're done, close the cap. This one is a bit used. So with the pen, I'm going to hold it normal way, and I don't have to push down on it. Let the pen, it'll flow just fine. So I'm going to use my pen, and I'm going to blend the bottom half of this. And you'll see a difference in how it blends. Now I'm just going to go across from blue into the yellow. Your pen basically acts like a paintbrush. Now, do I start at a certain area and go into another color the way I do it, whatever? It depends. I just want to show you what these pens, this can do. Now, and when you're done, go off to the side, clean your tip off. You'll get pigment that will stick on there. It will stain it. That's okay. You just want the chunks of wax off. Okay, cover that back up. Now you see a difference between the wax, the white, and what I did with the pen to blend out my colors. Okay, really a neat effect. Now, I can go back over, let's just say, okay, you know what? I need to darken up my violet blue over here. And I can go in there and I can darken that up on top of what I blended with the pen. I can also do it on the white. It just kind of looks a little bit more washed out because now I'm mixing white in there with my blue. Okay. The bigger differences with this, they both blend, the end result of what they do, they blend, yes, but they do it, but the end result looks a little bit different, where when you use the pen, it's breaking down the pigment and it goes into the paper. When I use white, it stays on the paper. It's on top of the surface. Okay? White gives you a different effect. It gives you a softer color, more pastelish. excellent way for doing flowers, leaves, adding glares to things. But white will not give you, just because I'm adding white to a color, does not give me white on top of it. It gives me a softer look of whatever is underneath, because the color pencil is still semi-transparent. This is mixing with what's underneath. You're blending the colors. Same thing with the blending pen. You're mixing the colors together. Okay. The other way, and I don't use this a lot, but a lot of people do, and so I show it, is the blending stick. This is a Prismacolor colorless blending stick. It is practically the premise of it, give you the analogy or whatever comparison, is a blending stump when you use for graphite pencil. A blending stump is made of paper. This is made of plastic. The blending stump will not work with color pencil. It's too dense, too thick. It's not going to, and the stump is too soft. This will dig into the pencil and move it around. So if I drop in my color, and this is a light blue, let me just drop in some color real quick. Actually, that's not going to show up very well. Let me go back to the violet blue here. So if I drop in my some color here, and I'll throw in a little bit of violet blue here, or this light blue here. And I want to kind of mix them around, and I want to kind of blend these together. What's nice with the stump, works the same premise as a paper stump. This it shoves it down into those nooks and crannies. I'll just do half here. Now you can see what it did to that color right through here. Not blended, blended. Okay. So the techniques, blending with the white, the blending pen, the stick, just the colors themselves. You can use and you can work your colors together just as you're drawing and blend them together as you're going along. Do you always have to use a white or the pen or something like that? No, they're just different ways of blending the colors. A lot of it is purely by experimenting, testing out what you got, what the effect that you're looking for. It's very neat effects that you can do with these color pencils. Okay, so this is really a basic general go over for beginners. Why the pencils, why the paper, why you draw small, why you draw lightly, why you have a sharp pencil, why and when you can use white, why and when you can use a blending pen, why about the stick, or just the colors themselves. So the effects that you can create are endless with this. Now, keep in mind, for every one of these like different techniques, different materials, different ways of doing things. Everybody has their way of doing it. I follow this. It works. It works very, very well. It's a very safe way of doing your drawings. Less mistakes. I don't want to be correcting. So, well, I hope you enjoyed this video on color pencil basics, and I hope that you will continue on, and if you have any questions, you can always send me a note. Well, thank you so much, and see you on the next one.